I am a firm believer of giving credit where credit is due. And my audience that's probably growing to despise me, I am going to today give credit to TYT. I have been hypercritical of TYT, and part of the reason why is that I'm a liberal, and I feel like I'm a true liberal, and that they do not represent my liberal values, though they claim to. So in order to make a clear distinction between what I believe to be true liberalism and what they believe to be liberalism, I have been very critical of them, and I also think that they have some very bad ideas that have consequences. And one of the consequences that many of us foresaw was that it would lead to the election of Donald Trump. Part of the reason why I was so critical was because these people could not be the ones challenging Donald Trump, or else that would actually lead to people supporting Donald Trump because they would see, oh, TYT, their ideas, they're kind of bad, and which they kind of are a lot of the time, and they would look at that and then go be pushed to the other side, whereas I was not going to allow myself to be pushed, but I wanted people to see what I believed was the correct representation of what it means to be a liberal. Liberal is quickly becoming a dirty word again, when really liberal, I believe it to be a positive thing, a good thing. Human beings, it's part of our nature to want to be free. And at the same time that we want to be free, it also has to be recognized that there are certain protections that we also want, because human nature is a tricky thing. It's not clear exactly what human nature is, but we do know that we, as human beings, work together for our best interests, our individual best interests, and at the same time, we also have to fear other human beings, which is a terrible, seemingly contradictory thing about our nature, but nevertheless, it is part of our nature. On one hand, we look to other humans for help. On the other, we have to fear other human beings. I wish that it wasn't that way. I wish we didn't have to fear other people, but it's undeniable. Sometimes we do have to be afraid, or we just naturally are afraid because people can do some very bad things to other people. But I'm not here to talk about human nature and why we have a government in the first place, although I do think that's an important conversation for later. I am here to say that TYT, good job on this video. You finally realized what we had been trying to tell you this whole time. Had you recognized this earlier, perhaps we wouldn't be in the situation that we are in now. Or perhaps you wanted this situation to happen so that you could come and be the heroes. Yeah, you would be the liberals that show us the way. You're not. You're part of the reason why we went down this path. This path that led to Donald Trump. You are partially responsible. All liberals are partially responsible. That does not mean that the responsibility of the far right, or just the right in general, is null and void just because the left is also partially responsible. But we do have to recognize our faults. We do have to recognize the impact that we had on this election with our bad ideas, with our safe spaces, and this social justice warrior mentality that we as liberals have. And when I say we, I mean that loosely, because I, of course, do not have this. Plenty of other liberals, of course, do not have this. But I am specifically referring to sort of the mainstream liberalism that people think of when they think of the modern day liberal. Progressivism, really, not even really progressivism, which is more of what David Pakman is, and I think I fall somewhere closer to David Pakman than I do to, say, someone Dave Rubin, who's not even really there with us anymore. I would say he's definitely leaning more towards libertarian, but that's another thing. My point is that the Young Turks have been championing regressivism, calling everyone a racist, a sexist, a bigot, a homophobe, Islamophobe. And the problem with this is that it did push people. And here in this video, there does seem to be some acknowledgement of it. So that is what I am going to be praising the Young Turks for today. The video that I'm going to be praising TYT for today is the one where they address Richard Spencer, and that recent video that came out with the alt-right, and some of the people in the audience are doing Nazi salutes, and it seems like Richard Spencer's speech, well, it doesn't seem, it is a very white, not nationalist, white supremacist speech. My audience who is either only subscribed to me because they want to shitpost, dislike, or my audience who thought very differently of me, who thought that I was a Trump supporter simply because I criticized the regressive left when I am part of the left. Do you think I'm going to support Trump when he represents nothing that I believe in? Anyway, that's a whole other thing. You may not like this video. You might think that I'm misrepresenting the alt-right or that I'm misrepresenting Donald Trump supporters. I'm going to make it very clear here. This is not all Donald Trump supporters, and TYT actually makes a distinction as well. In this video, they address why it was wrong, why it is wrong to call all Donald Trump supporters racist, to pretend that they're all like this white supremacist man, Richard Spencer, why it is wrong to call all of these people who supported Trump like Richard Spencer, who is a self-proclaimed alt-righter. The alt-right likes to pretend that it's something other than what it clearly is. It is simply neo-Nazism or white supremacy, whichever term you prefer, but there does seem to be within the alt-right. Now, there was actually a really good video done by Roaming Millennial, although I disagree with her lowest tier. I don't think you can group just people who are pro-Western civilization. I don't think you can group them in with a lot of these other people. And I do believe that there are different, levels, varying levels of what constitutes being an alt-righter and being part of the alt-right. But very simply put, it does just seem to be neo-Nazism repackaged, revamped for a new audience, and they have done a very good job of winning the internet. One of the things that a friend of mine and also my sister said is that this election and this culture war was won with memes. They have great memes, and it also gives them plausible deniability. They can just say, oh, it's a joke, they're just trolling. They don't actually believe in it, yet the ideas, the sentiments are still being expressed and disseminated, and people are picking up on these sentiments and starting to internalize these sentiments. Some of these sentiments are bad. I mean, a lot of them are bad. The idea that whites are just naturally superior, that other races are just lazy, or that even going to the highest level, which is the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory route, they believe that all of the other races are being controlled by the Jew, and that the Jew is trying to enact a genocide against white people. And this is really just a much larger thing. This is a grand conspiracy theory to eliminate the white man by the Jew. It's ridiculous. All of these, my Donald Trump supporting audience, please disavow this. If you consider yourself a rational thinking human being, you can support Trump. I mean, I don't think you're less of a human being for supporting Trump. I don't think you're even a bad person for supporting Trump. I disagree with you heavily. I think you're very misguided. That's my opinion. Based on what I know, I think you're misguided. But I don't think you're a bad person. I'm asking you, please disavow people who are doing Nazi salutes, who are saying that whites are superior and that other races don't do anything for society. Please disavow those people. If you don't like being lumped in with those people in the alt-right who are the extreme, then stop defending them. Stop disliking anybody who says anything negative about the alt-right. I want to give Trump supporters the benefit of the doubt. I want to believe that not that many people can be bad. And I don't think you're bad. I currently don't think you're bad. But you can't keep defending bad actors. You can't keep defending bad actions on your side. Think about it this way. I spent so much of my time disavowing bad actors on the left, saying, this is not what I believe in, this is wrong, here's why I think it's wrong. I think these people some of them are malevolent. I think that their attitudes are even racist, going as far to say racist. Calling people on the left, some of them racist, because of the way that they automatically like or dislike people or want to duel out power based on, someone's skin color, saying that this person has lived this sort of life and you can't understand that because you're that person. I think that's wrong, and I've called it out. So why can't you? If you expect me to be intellectually honest, if you expect the left to basically purge ourselves of the truly bad actors, why can't we expect the same from you? Why do you go around disliking any video with any hint of criticism at what's been happening in our political system? It seems like a double standard. And people who watch me know I hate double standards. I think they're one of the worst things that we have in our society. It's a sign of intellectual dishonesty. It's a sign that there is something darker going on. And I think it's time that we point out the double standards, not only in the left, but on the right too. Otherwise, we have a double standard.
What is the alt-right's connection to the Donald Trump presidency? So they actually did address this. Richard Spencer says, quote, "I do think we have a psychic connection, or can you say a deeper connection with Donald Trump in a way that we simply do not have with most Republicans. White identity," he said, "is at the core of both the alt-right movement and the Trump movement, even if most voters for Mr. Trump aren't willing to articulate it as such," which I thought was kind of an interesting point to end on, because it addresses what I know we've talked about before, is that a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump might not identify themselves as white supremacists. In fact, they would reject that sort of ideology. But here we are hearing from the head of the alt-right, Richard Spencer, the president of the National Policy Institute, that indeed, if you voted for Trump, you do have something in common with these people. Would you agree with that, Francis?
Yeah, I think so. It's not whether they want to acknowledge that they have something in common or not, they do.
Now, I know I said that this video was actually going to be sort of praising the Young Turks for at least acknowledging some of their misgivings, or at least the left's misgivings, not their personal misgivings as being members of the left, but just the left in general. But I do want to quickly address this, lest someone think that I am purposely leaving this part out. When they do say that these people, that all Donald Trump supporters have something in common with these people, I think that knowing the Young Turks, I think that's incredibly misleading. I think that there are so many different reasons why people voted for Donald Trump. I don't think it's fair to say that just because these people voted for Trump and these people voted for Trump, that they supported him for the same reasons, or that they have the same sort of nationalist streak. I do think there is a lot of a strong attachment to nationalism within the people who voted for Donald Trump. But I don't think it's fair to say all, and I don't think that all elements of nationalism are necessarily bad. I think that it's okay to feel patriotism and pride for one's country. I don't think it's okay to feel that patriotism and attach it to your skin color, which is what a lot of the people on the alt-right do. I don't think you can say the same thing for the rest of Donald Trump supporters. I think there are just so many different reasons why people voted for Trump. And I think this summary here of just showing the extremely bad side of Trump supporters, and then attributing that across the board to all Trump supporters, not by saying, oh, you're just like them. That's not what he's saying, but he is saying that you do have something in common. I think that's just kind of misleading to say, because what is it that you have in common? He clearly seems to be implying that it's this white supremacist bit of it that they have in common. I don't think that is a fair thing to say, but I did say this video was going to be full of some level of praise, so move on.
They both voted for a candidate that was endorsed by the KKK, that was endorsed by alt-right members of society that uphold values of white supremacy. That's just the way it works. That's it.
Once again, it's that same sort of thing. Just because a candidate was endorsed by the KKK does not mean that the people who supported that candidate have something necessarily in common with the KKK, because I think that really heavily implies that you are saying that these people are racist, because the KKK, to me, and I think to many, many other people, and they do have a history of racism, they are definitely a racist organization. And I know you guys, my audience, you're sick of the word racist, but that word does have a meaning. Now, it's been overused and been applied where it should not have applied, but that doesn't mean that the word doesn't apply in the case when we're talking about the KKK. Can you get that? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be patronizing, but for the people who are going to just dislike this video and be like, oh no, you're using the word racist, that has no meaning anymore because of the left. I'm sorry, there's still a dictionary definition. it still applies. Just because a word was overused incorrectly does not mean that using it correctly is incorrect now. Can we please get over that? Getting back to criticizing TYT, even though this video was supposed to be praising them, I think it is a big mistake to use the support, the endorsement by the KKK of Donald Trump, and look at Trump supporters and be like, they have something in common. I don't think that's exactly appropriate. And I actually think it is the very thing that you go on to say is wrong in this video. So you're kind of contradicting yourself within the same video. But I do very much appreciate the next sentiment that you're going to express. So let's get on to that.
Whether you believe or not that these are values that you hold true to you, and this is where I've been going back and forth with a lot of liberal friends of mine and those in other sources, where I say that I'm not going to paint everyone with the same brush, but I'm, rather than basically calling them this and saying you are racist, you are sexist, you are xenophobe, I don't think we get anywhere, because we did it for 12 months and it gave us Donald Trump.
And right there, he is spot on. So I don't understand why he said the thing prior to that, because the next thing he says completely seems to contradict it, which is we shouldn't paint people with a broad brush, and that calling everybody racist and sexist is not going to help our cause. In fact, what we saw in this election was that it led to the rise of Donald Trump. It created him, and it's what allowed him to thrive. It's why he was allowed to become our president, a man who has, oh my God, no experience. That's a side note, and I know you're going to love me for saying it, right? Okay. Yeah, that point is dead on. Couldn't agree more.
So rather than that, now the only way I see sort of bridges being built is if I hold them accountable. So if you say this is not what you support, because the only way that this sort of change and any sort of middle ground comes to fruition is if they denounce this. This is not what we support, because I think it happens on the grassroots, like ground level. I think the change that we need to kind of be pushed forward, it's not going to happen from Donald Trump. He's not going to come out and denounce this. He'll maybe send it in a tweet at 3 a.m. Suddenly that's big enough. No, it's going to happen from those 46% of America is not this. I just cannot bring myself to believe that. So it's going to happen with those people that maybe have voted for whatever motive they believe. They need to stand against this and ensure that that's not something that they uphold as part of their party's values, because I think it's very easy to taint them all with the same brush and class them all as sexist and racists, Donald Trump voters, everyone else, and shame them. But I just don't agree that that's gotten us anywhere. I feel like that's gotten us Donald Trump.
Not only does it not get us anywhere, it's also simply just not true. It would be unfair to call all Donald Trump supporters racist and sexist. Now, he's going at it at a more strategic angle, as in it's not actually going to help our cause, and I agree with that. It doesn't help our cause, but it's also a matter of just not being true and not being fair to people who supported Donald Trump. So that's just one thing I will add, although I absolutely agree with him. You guys, you Donald Trump supporters, please disavow these people. You don't want to be lumped in with them. You don't want to be confused with them. And I feel like, just as I didn't want to be confused with the regressive left, I think it's time now that you say, if you don't like it, that other people are confusing you as part of the alt-right, it might be partially your responsibility to say, hey, this is not who I am. I'm going to show you who I am. This is who I am. That's not me. That doesn't represent my values. And I'm going to publicly express that in the same way that you wanted liberals to do it, in the same way that you wanted Muslims to do it. You can't have a double standard about that. If you want people, if you think that some people, in order to not be confused with the larger group, have to publicly denounce bad actors, then you should take your own advice and do the same thing and stop calling everybody else unfair for accidentally lumping you in. We shouldn't. If I were speaking to my side, I would say, don't do this. Don't call everybody racist. Don't call everybody sexist. You are slandering people unjustly. You do not know these people. You cannot pretend to know them. But if I was on your side, I would also be saying, hey guys, it's not right that they are generalizing about us and lumping us in with these people. But at the same time, if we want to actually help the situation and not be lumped in with these people, we should do something as well to make sure that there's a clear distinction from our beliefs and their beliefs. And I think the problem is the right thinks it's incumbent upon the left to just be fair and just, and it should be for everybody, but they do not believe that it's incumbent upon themselves to make clear who they are. But they also believe that the left should make it clear who they are, but they don't believe that they have to act justly or fairly. Now, that's me maybe generalizing, but from what I've seen, it seems like people on the right oftentimes do lump liberals together into this homogenous group when we clearly are not. And that's why this whole awakening sort of happened in the first place.
So rather than continue to do so, which again, it's valid in a lot of cases because there's a lot of people that are emboldened by Donald Trump and are uplifted and feel like they now resonate again. Mm-hmm. They don't. David Dukes of the world, those people are the scum of the earth. But to make sure that, to go around and say that everyone is them, I just don't think it gets us anywhere.
We should be listening to what they have to say because we ought to be monitoring what they're saying.
I agree.
We got to pay very close attention to what they have to say, and we got to pay very close attention to how much of their ideology is implemented into a Trump administration. And when we consider that the chief policy advisor to Donald Trump is Steve Bannon, the editor-in-chief of Breitbart, which is the gospel publication, to the extent that something on the internet is published, of the alt-right, they have a voice in the White House.
Yeah.
I agree with Francis. We can't. I know Trump voters. In my extended family, they're not racist, right? And it wasn't their motivation. There is a significant percentage that feels that, and it goes back to Fox News saying there's a war on Christmas. This notion that the alt-right has that somehow, like he says it right here. You read it, Grace. Children of the sun, a race of conquerors and creators who had been marginalized. How are white people in the United States of America been marginalized? Yeah. In what possible way have white people, in what possible way is there a war on Christmas? We ought to pay unbelievably close attention, and we also ought to remember that when we call them the alt-right, we are just merely accepting their rebrand.
Yeah. Right.
They're white supremacists in suits.
There's a lot of people that are worried, and rightfully so, because Donald Trump, whether his supporters want to believe it or not, he's invited them in. Say, for instance, you decide to host a college party, and you invite a bunch of people over, and people that you invite to your house commit atrocities. You might not believe what they're doing, but you invited them in, so it's your obligation to condemn that. It might not be what you believe if someone does something in your house, but if you invited them to that party, then you're responsible for what goes on in your house. So you need to, in a way, make sure that you push across that you're condemning this and this isn't what you voted and supported for.
One thing that I hear from people who are not on the alt-right, do not agree with the alt-right, but who voted and supported Donald Trump, is that Donald Trump clearly does not represent their values. And it's unfair in a conversation about Donald Trump to be bringing up these people on the alt-right or these neo-Nazis, neo-Nazis, you could even say. And I think what they don't acknowledge and what I think is sort of undeniable is that regardless of what Donald Trump personally believes, and I don't think it's fair to say that he is part of this. I don't think he at all really supports this, although I think he's been a little bit complacent in their rise, in their sort of gaining mobility. I think that it is undeniable, and I think what Donald Trump supporters should stop denying is that this has definitely emboldened those people. I don't think we can continue to deny that. Now, when I say we, I don't mean me or people on the left. I mean people on the right. I think that there has to be some acknowledgement of this. I would acknowledge the same if my candidate, Hillary Clinton, had emboldened some people on the left who were extreme. I would have acknowledged it. I would have denounced it, not dismissed it. I would have denounced it and said, this is wrong. Here's why I support Hillary. This is clearly wrong. Hillary, I hope you speak out against this, and I'm going to put pressure on you to speak out against this, whatever it is that's bad coming from the left, that's being emboldened by you. And that's how I would deal with it. But it seems like Donald Trump supporters, even when they don't agree with what some other Donald Trump supporters are doing, or what he might arouse in some people, there seems to be a desire and a need to defend him without denouncing certain things. They have to be less defensive when it comes to those certain things. I think you can still support your candidate while recognizing that something bad might be promoted by him, or that he himself may hold a bad idea, I think you can still support him while at the same time disavowing certain beliefs of either his supporters or of himself. I don't see what's wrong with that. You're not giving the left power by doing that. By doing that, you are actually helping to bridge the gap between people. I don't like this doubling down that we're seeing from the right that I've been seeing from the left, and what I was calling out for so long. And what so many people who were on the left, who were feeling like the left had sort of betrayed them, were calling out. We shouldn't accept it on the left, and we shouldn't accept it on the right.
So much of what they are saying, I don't want to legitimize with coverage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. You know, it's hard to know exactly how to handle it. Because again, they're alt-right, they're white supremacists dressed up. That's their name, alt-right. You know, I don't know whether you're much of a sports fan. I know Francis is, but part of why this works is that no matter what you are in sports, right, a way to motivate your team is to say, and we've seen it in every sport, college, professional, is to say, nobody believed in us, but we came together. The world was against us. Everybody thought we were losers, and look what we did. Even frequently when you're like, no, everybody, even when great teams do it, like Cavaliers, nobody believes us. Everybody believed in you. What are you talking about? Literally. You so these guys need to feel victimized, and they have managed to turn that desire to be victimized into something that resonates with people. And that's how you get people in. People who wouldn't normally walk down the street and think, ugh, immigrant, right? But you think your life's not going well, you don't have a good job, you haven't gotten ahead, you're underachieving, your parents did better. Somebody tells you, man, the system's rigged against you.
Ben Mankiewicz is spot on here. Now, I know my audience, you're thinking, wait a second, that sounds just like what the left has been doing, playing the victim card. Well, yes, that was what the left was doing for a very long time. And I called it out. And a lot of other people on the left called it out. But some people were pushed to the right. And now it seems that the right is adopting this useful tactic, this very effective tactic. They've adopted this, and they are also playing the victim card. Can't you see that people on the right are doing the same thing that they were calling the left out for doing? This is identity politics, and it is poison, no matter which side does it, be it the right or the left. Now you can say, we should call the left out more, because the left has power. The left has more influence in society. But this is simply no longer the case. Not only is this no longer true on a political level, culturally, there is also a major shift. If you look online, which videos get more likes and which videos get more dislikes? People who call out the left, that's seen generally as a positive thing by the internet. There's a lot of support there. A lot of people are encouraging that, both from the right and the left. But look at the right. When someone criticizes the right, the alt-right, or even just Donald Trump supporters in general, or Donald Trump, look at the dislikes. Now, I'm not saying that likes and dislikes are the determining factors, the sole determining factors of the direction of a culture. That's not what I'm suggesting. But if you look at the memes, if you look at the likes, the dislikes, and what's popular, especially in the skeptic community, it seems that it favors criticism against the left as opposed to criticism against the right. I don't think we can really deny this. You may still see campus SJWs, with their blue hair and their scarves even. But it is undeniable that the internet is playing a major role in this cultural shift, and that it appears that the right has sort of a nice hot spot here, has a nice home. The left, people like making fun of the left. I like making fun of the left. But criticism against the right, people are very sensitive towards that. God, I miss Jon Stewart so much. And I understand that people are tired of being called sexist and racist. But that doesn't mean that you go the opposite way. You stick to your ground, say, this is wrong, and I'm going to stick right here, And you can call me a sexist, a racist, a bigot, whatever you want. This is what's right.
Here's the harsh reality, right, is what you asked a great question, which is about, do we, you almost don't feel right covering it, right? Because you're almost giving more voice to it. And I understand that, but what we need to understand, Grace, is that for 12 months, we ridiculed a lot of people who were kind of in limbo, whether they were going to go Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and those that kind of maybe showed some signs leaning towards Donald Trump, we labeled them as them. And what that does is that means that we focus nothing but our attention on the worst of that fan base and the worst of those followers, and started categorizing them in a way that they were immediately pushed towards Donald Trump. We did nothing but push them towards it.
And here, they really acknowledge that they played a role in this. They really acknowledge that we, he says we, did something wrong. And we did. The left did. I think it is so valuable that TYT is starting to recognize this. Now, I do not like TYT. I will never trust them. I will never view them as credible. But I can't deny, and I don't think we can deny, that they do have influence, especially over young people. So the fact that they are acknowledging this, despite whether I like them or not, this isn't going to really change my attitude towards their credibility. It is very important that even sources that messed up in the past are correcting themselves now, setting the record straight and acknowledging wrongdoing. I think that is so valuable. I think that is so important. And that's why I want to give positive reinforcement and say, TYT, good on you. Good on you for recognizing what you did wrong and how that led to the rise in Donald Trump. I actually am very appreciative of that. That doesn't mean I'm going to blindly trust you. That doesn't mean I'm going to go to you for credible news. But it does mean that I can start thinking a little bit better of you. And even if I don't think better of you, I still think it's good for a new generation of people that you are starting to go down the right path. I don't know if you're going to stick to that path, but I think this is the beginning of the right path, and I really, really encourage you to continue along.
And we continued. Every news source was furthering looking at all the atrocities that were committed, which, by the way, a lot of them were merited. You have to look into how despicable some of these people are, but it wasn't all of them. And I felt that we just completely missed what our job was as people on the left, was to ask why. Like, you are leaning towards Donald Trump? Really? Why? Explain. And then I can use my educational tools and my ability to debate to try and sway you. But instead, we didn't. We lost the art of debating that, and instead we focused all of our coverage on the extreme forms of Trump's protesters, the extreme forms of Trump's fans, so that these people were given more of a voice. They were given a voice as soon as he announced his candidacy.
And here he is talking about a dialogue, the battle of ideas. We as liberals should have been open to a dialogue, to discussion, and maybe we could have changed the minds of some people. Not by calling them racist or sexist, but by having a genuine conversation in which both sides can perhaps learn something, which we can gain from, in which not only are we going to understand their ideas better, we're going to understand our own ideas better. I think that it is so important that he is saying this, especially now. I wish it had come sooner. I definitely wish this had come sooner, but I'll take what I can get. I guess we'll all have to just take what we can get. No, don't settle. See, this is a very confusing thing. There's always a balance between, do we compromise or do we push for what we believe is absolutely right? It's a balance. You gotta find it somewhere. There are things that I will not compromise on, but I think when it comes to having a dialogue, there has to be some push, because we can go back to our sides at the end, but for the sake of having a conversation and expanding our minds, it's sort of a different format than pushing for an action, for a law. I think that's a little different. So, good on you. Good on you. I don't know who you are, but good on you right now.
And it only continued and grew further. And then when he came in to be president, Ben's right as well. We now need to actually pay attention, because we need to keep our ear to the ground and make sure that they're not going to push anything even further. Like when you get Steve Bannon now going to be directly advising the president, and he's got his ear to the alt-right movement as well. We're not left with the choice. A lot of the time when we report on these, it's almost like, to a lot of people who maybe don't go and get their sources from many different subjects, they're thinking, oh my God, this is growing. All these people are joining together. They're all doing it. They've always been those type of people. They've always been there, but they now just feel emboldened. That's the way they feel that they can get away with it, yelling it in the streets, and they can get away with it doing these things.
Most importantly, they have a seat at the table, and that is alarming.
Now, of course, I didn't include every part of the video. It's a 14 or 17-minute video, so I can't include everything. I'm not intentionally leaving stuff out to push and say, oh, TYT is perfect now. There were definitely parts that I absolutely did not agree with, or that I felt like they went about them in the wrong way. But I am including these parts just to say that there is some change going on. There is some acknowledgement. So I'm not doing this as a full-on critique of their video. I'm only pulling these parts out to highlight that there is an awakening, even on the extreme regressive left side. There is an acknowledgement of the fact that they played a negative role in this election, and that they really pushed people to the right. I think that that is so important, so I did include it. And I didn't include a lot of the other parts that I disagreed with. I'm not trying to paint TYT in a certain way or say, oh, they're good now, see? I am simply just pointing out the acknowledgement. I think that's incredibly important. If you want to go see the full video, that's in the links in the description down below. If you want to see the video in its entirety, I'm not trying to lie about its contents. There are absolutely things you will roll your eyes at, but I do think it is an important conversation, and it's probably the closest to a real acknowledgement of the wrongdoing that we're going to see from TYT. So I think that's absolutely important. For the Donald Trump supporters watching my video, I'm going to repeat it again. Please, please disavow the people that you disagree with, even if they agree with you about supporting Trump. Just because we're attacking those people does not mean we're attacking you. And to my left audience, just because we disagree with Donald Trump and we disagree with some chunk of his supporters for that very specific reason, as they are what we would consider racist and super white supremacist-like or neo-Nazi-like, I think that we have to be careful not to paint all of Donald Trump's supporters that way. So it's a message for both of you. Can you both please just acknowledge that I am not trying to demonize anyone. I just want to see the best result for my country, and I want the people to come together, but I also want to acknowledge genuinely bad people. I don't want to throw that under the rug, because I think when there is a problem, it has to be acknowledged, and I think it has to be acknowledged by both parties. So please, please be clear and level-headed about this, and I'm talking to both you, the right and the left. Please.